Welcome to Bay Rats and Buoys Season 2 with your host, Captain Gaige.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bay Rats and Buoys. I'm your host, Captain Gaige. This is episode number 45, Season 2, from the studio. Brought to you in part by Cito Huntington. Are you a member? Visit Cito.com to join today. And the Fisherman Magazine, my favorite subscription to get in the mail. And Clicks Fueling, visit clicksfueling.com. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, I loaded everything down the dock today, got on the boat. It was a little drizzle going on. It was more like a mist. So I was like, all right, there's going to be a clear window here for an hour or so where it's not going to mist or drizzle. And it got worse and worse and was never letting up. So I said, you know what? Better off I take this show on the road and get off the boat and stay dry. So I brought everything to the studio. And here I am in front of the boat show backdrop that we'll be using in January, one of them. And it's nice to be back in the studio. But I do like doing it from the boat. Season 2 on the boat, much better. And we're just 7 weeks away from our 1-year anniversary. So we are going to have some sort of podcast celebration for our 1-year anniversary. So we'll keep you posted. And speaking of, I know we're going to get together tonight at Whale's Tail for a couple of drinks. We are recording this on Wednesday, because it is going to be blowing 25 miles per hour tomorrow, so I didn't think it would be a good day to sit on the boat in the wind. And so every week I get messages, whether they're private messages, whether they're from Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, website, and, you know, even YouTube comments. And sometimes there's so much going on, there'll be an oversight to a few of them. And, you know, so I apologize. You know, I do try to respond to everybody that does write in and send in some comments. I love it. Keep it coming. You guys are awesome. And Frank, even last week, it wasn't in last week's, it wasn't in 44. I think it was in episode 43 where you wrote a nice YouTube description of something that had happened with you hooking up to the porgy and you were eating your power bar. You said, let the porgy stay on. And sure enough, the striped bass decided that porgy was his lunch too. So next thing you know, your reel is peel and drag, and you pick it up, you fight the fish, and you had light tackle on, and you wound up going down to the point where it's going to break off. And, it must have been a nice bass, because we do have big bass in our area. Guys, the fishing in our area has been lights out all season. Now, granted, there's been weeks where it's been slower, days where it's been slower, but there hasn't been trips that we go out that we get skunked, and I'm not even saying that knocking on any wood, no superstition, bring it on. We've had such a good year that, basically that's what I'm saying. I'm saying we had a good year, and we're not worried about going out there getting skunked. And recently, on a lot of our bottom fishing trips with a lot of families that go out this time of the year because they want to take the kids fishing before they send them off to college. So we've had some really awesome families on board. But we've been hooking into cocktail blues while we're bottom fishing and getting in schools of them, to the point where everybody's reeling in a bluefish on the boat. And it's a ton of fun. It really is. And speaking of bluefish, Teddy went out the other day, calls me. He's going to head down to the dock. He's going to try to catch some spot before he heads out because he's going to go striped bass fishing. And everybody knows, if you listen to the podcast, I tell you, the best way to catch striped bass right now is the live line and put down some spot you're going to hook up. And he sent me a ton of pictures. A lot of the spot they were putting down were getting harassed and eaten in half, bitten in half by gator blues. So it's nice to know. It is, because the gator blues are here. And just in time for the WICC tournament that's going on this weekend, I believe. They always have high winds. And yes, Thursday it's going to be high winds. Friday it's going to be high winds. And then it's supposed to lay down Friday evening. I know it calms down a little bit. I didn't get too far into the weather for the weekend. I know we have Ian coming up the coast. And the Carolinas are getting pounded right now. I just shot a message out to Chef Rob, make sure he's all right. And he's in South Carolina, and I know the Outer Banks had some serious the houses on stilts that had been abandoned already they were predicted to fall. They were going to knock them down prior to the storm. They didn't have enough time to do that, but yeah, they're being knocked down by the storm right now as we speak. And that's what's cool about the internet, because, the people are there posting videos, making videos, and putting them on Instagram and TikTok so that we can see what's going on in the storm, as opposed to having to turn on the news and see the guy standing in his waders, down by the beach with the reporting crew. So it's nice. That's what's good about the internet. And so we talked about some of the guys that reach out to us, and, sometimes I comment, sometimes I don't. So when you do comment and reach out to me, I do like to give you a shout out and mention you on Bay Rats and Buoys, because that's what this community is about. It's about building and growing together, and that's how we're going to do it. And first, I'll start off by giving Robert G a shout out, because he commented also on last week's YouTube comment, because we were talking about the dolphin and the seal and the cow-nosed stingrays that are here and all the cool life that we get to see. And he got to witness a giant sea turtle over in Glen Cove. And he even wrote, I think in the comment was prehistoric. And you know something? It really is, because those things get to be 100 years old, and they are so cool when you get to see one that size. You really get to understand how big and old that thing really is and how long it survived. It's unbelievable. It really is. So I chased a turtle in I think it was on Baby Beach in Aruba. And it was the coolest thing, because I had an underwater camera, a digital camera with an underwater scuba setup around it. And I was chasing this turtle, and I got some great video and great photos of them. And, man, they're pretty quick. So, they say the turtle is slow and the tortoise is slow and the rabbit is fast. Well, I'll tell you, in the water, the tortoise is not so slow. So that's pretty cool, Robert G, that you got to see that. And Jack, I got to give you a shout-out to Jumpin' Jack Bass. That's a great name on Instagram. So Jumpin' Jack Bass, I appreciate the kind words. You reached out via Instagram, and I really do. I appreciate you being a fan of Bay Rats and Buoys. Thank you. And I hope you do make it back in time for next year's tournament, as far as I know you said you're going to be away. So hope you're back in time for that. So we'd love to have you in the tournament next year. Next year is going to be epic. It really is. I just so happen to have my tournament shirt on today, because it was the comfortable shirt that I was going to put on underneath the sweatshirt I knew I was going to have to wear on the boat, because it was a little cool today. So it is getting, you get up in the mornings, you get out there, guys, and you're like, whoa, it's pretty chilly. And you get down there on the water, and the water temperature is warmer than the air. So we love that. We love this time of the year. We really do. And so those were a couple of shout-outs that we know we had to do. And, I always shout out the guys from J&M Seafood, Matt, Cody, and Rich, and the whole gang over there, all the boys at J&M Seafood. You guys are doing a great job. And I can't wait to release some of the news when Matt says to me, go ahead, we can let it go. We're going to, I'm sure there's going to be a whole press release for him. He's got some big things happening, so that's exciting. And I get a call this week from Jacob, who I always talk about out in the Peconic Bay with Davy Jones Shellfish Company, who's absolutely killing it this year and growing at astronomical levels. So that's a good thing, When everybody's business is doing good and we're all thriving here on the island in this maritime industry, whether it be in the seafood industry, whether it be on the charter boats or fishing or crabbing or lobsters or clamming, that whole industry, anybody doing anything, even the mechanics, it doesn't matter what you're doing. We're always happy to see people doing well in this business, because it's seasonal around here. You know what I mean? It's not, and it's seasonal for most of us, I should say. It is not seasonal for Jacob, because he is out there in the winter time, and you see the ice and the pictures, and I've shown it to you guys in the winter episodes for sure. And me and him have some inside funny things to talk about. One of them being the New York Times reached out to us, and it had to do with what was going on in Montauk and the Montauk Yacht Club. So neither one of us knew any intel that they were looking for. So we just passed it along. Anyway, it was great to connect with the people that we did connect with the New York Times and talk about some cool stuff. But you've heard me mention in the past about line on your boat and people that call it rope. Well, Jacob sent me a comment saying that you think it's bad when somebody calls it rope. He says, I got a guy in my area that calls it string, and it makes his skin crawl. So it was nice to hear that I'm not the only one that thinks you're a dope when you call it a rope. So there's no rope on a boat. Just remember that. Keep that in mind. Anyway, we're always down for a good time here at Bay Rats and Buoys for sure. And I'm sure when we have some drinks tonight with a couple of the locals, we're going to have a good time. We always do. So you're always welcome to join us. Reach out. Usually Wednesday nights we try to head over to the bar over at Whale's Tail here in Northport. And I am setting up the time slot with Sash to head out to the Hamptons and get the owner of Whale's Tail Hamptons on the podcast so you guys can hear what's going on out east and on the East End, which is always pretty cool. You know, this time of the year, it's great to head out there. I love going to Greenport. I love Orient Point, the whole East End. It's absolutely awesome. And it was great to spend time with Chris Squeary and the boys over at the Montauk Canyon Challenge, over at the Montauk Yacht Club. That was absolutely epic. And they recently closed up. They finished their tournament, the Hampton Shootout, so that was another success and another successful tournament, I should say. So it's just nice to see the tuna bite here on Long Island, killing it. And Corey went out. So Corey was offshore again this weekend. You hear me talk about him all the time, or make fun of him all the time, one or the other. And they got no tuna. They did hook into a 200-plus pound mako, a little over 8 feet long. Got it real close to the boat, wound up snapping off, and they caught a bunch of mahi, and the whole boat limited out on tile fish. So they had a great offshore trip, no doubt about it, but they did not get on any tuna. And I know that's what the trip is focused on. They try to get out there, get on the tuna, and anything else is a bycatch and the usual stuff, you know. So not everybody's hooking into a 200-plus pound mako, so that's kind of cool. Lucky you didn't have to handle that on the boat, but he was saying it was 5-6 feet out of the water in the air, clearing the boat for sure. So, and speaking of, you know, last week, how ironic was it that I mentioned that we all get our asses kicked by our boat? Then, of course, you see online, you know, whether it be with Channel 12 News or just, you know, Facebook groups alone, and Captain Joey Leggio, who I call Captain Legend. So I call him Joey Legend, even though it's Joey Leggio. So he had a crazy boating accident. And, you know, I saw the picture this morning of the hand after surgery, stitched up, and he was holding it up, and pretty crazy to see. But he hit a wave, fell overboard, and his hand hit the prop. And, you know, I've only reached out with comments and stuff on Facebook to him. And there is a GoFundMe page. So, you know, when we talk about the maritime community and the, you know, Mariners Code and all the different things, and in times like this, when a captain that runs charters for a living, you know, suffers an injury from his boat, you know, the whole community has to come together. And they are. And they have. And just like I'm mentioning it here on the podcast, because it's important. It really is. And I'll put a link in the description to the video here for the GoFundMe page for Captain Joey Leggio. So everybody that's a Bay Rats and Buoys fan, do your part, and anything that you can donate and help out, it will help him and his family get through this tough time. And, you know, it's an accident. Why do you call it an accident? Because it wasn't meant to happen. And ironically, last week I was talking about how we got our asses kicked by a boat. But, Joey, you took it to a whole new goddamn level. You cut it out. Time to catch fish and get your hand fixed, and you'll be back at it. I know you will. Godspeed recovery to you. You know we love you, and we wish you nothing but a fast recovery for that hand, and you'll be back to catching fish in no time and steering the boat and putting people on fish like you do. So I will put the link to the GoFundMe page in the description on YouTube. I could also put it on the website as well. It's sandcitycharter.com, because we'll do the right thing by Captain Joey anytime. So what else we got going on? it is coming to the end of August, so here we are at the WICC tournament already. It's the Bluefish Tournament. And I know guys in our area, me and Corey kept saying we're heading in certain, we're going to head east. We're going to head east and we're going to go hunt the blues. We're going to find them. And I'm talking to the guys out east. And, certain wind directions, certain things. I mean, the water is murky as hell. It's dirty as hell by me. And, all these things play a role. And I once had this conversation with an 80-year-old guy at Safe Harbor Marina in Glen Cove. And I love talking to these old salty guys. I really do. I'd love to have some, just like Jerry over at Windcoat, his houseboat is there. And, he was in the Coast Guard. And, when you talk to the older generation, to that generation that has seen so much more than we have as far as the cycles of fishing and how things go in cycles. And some years the bluefish are here and they're jumping out of the water. They're everywhere. They almost become like a bycatch and a nuisance, to catch them, even though I think they're the best fighting fish pound for pound that we have in our area on the Long Island Sound. And he was telling me that the bluefish, over the 50 years that he's been fishing consistently, maybe even 50, 60 years that he was fishing consistently, that he saw the cycles that we're experiencing now and seeing. So he told me over those decades how every year it was different and, how it built up to, they were almost gone where you didn't see them for a year or two. And then, boom, they come back. And, those things happen in cycles. So I love hearing those stories from guys, especially like Jerry on the houseboat. His boat holds 600 gallons of fresh water. He's got to go through, when he leaves Huntington, he goes to Florida, and he's got to go through the locks. And it's, he takes a journey. It's a 3-week trip. It's not something that you're shooting down to and doing in 5 days. And he takes his time. And so he knows where he stops along the way. Over the years, he's been doing it for a long time. And this year, he may actually stay up here for the winter. So when you talk to these guys and you get their perspective of, how they travel and do things on the water, it's so cool. So to me, I'm all ears. And I told you, I'm like a sponge, so I love to learn things. So, I just ask a lot of questions. But again, I hope you guys get on some bluefish for this WICC tournament. It's usually guys on the Connecticut side and way east heading towards the Peconic. But after speaking to Jacob, they're not crushing it out east either. So let's see how this tournament prevails this year. I'm always in it. I always get out there. Me and my son get out there Friday at midnight, and we start right away. And we usually catch monster bass. And then we're mad that we're catching bass because we want to catch bluefish. And it happens. What are you going to do? That's why it's called fishing. But we love doing it. And we're addicted by all means. I mean, Corey, the tuna gods have their hooks in Corey, so he's done. He's hooked on tuna. Forget it. He's going to be spending all his money on tuna gear, I guarantee it. He's not going to want to catch striped bass ever again. That's for sure. But he will. And being he's a great first mate, he's got no choice to, at least net them and get them on the boat and get the right setups out in place for the people so they can catch fish. Because we've had some awesome charters this year. I mean, I got to say how blessed we are with the clients that we have at Sand City Charter. And I say it to every crowd that comes on the boat. I'm like, here it is again. Like, we just get awesome people on the boat, even when we think we're button hooked. They're coming in from out of town and from far away, and we think we're destined for doom. It's not. It's been great every time, and I don't know if that's residue of design and what we bring to the table and what we create on the boat as far as the ambiance and the equipment and everything that we do. And how we speak to the people and, how we go attack it and go fish and catch the fish and do what we do. But I just got to say, man, we're just super lucky and super blessed. And the fans of Bay Rats and Buoys, I try to talk about it all the time. This wouldn't be possible without you guys. And so there's a lot happening. There's a lot of great things going on in the industry. And like, we're really looking forward to the 5 days at the boat show because we're already planning ahead for 2026 and planning to go to other boat shows in other areas. And that's exciting for us because we know that we're growing on a national level. Okay, even though we talk about stuff related to the Western Sound and the Long Island Sound and Huntington and our area, just talking about being a captain and being on a boat and fishing is what people are really passionate about. So every week we talk about new products and new things, and that's what's getting the attention of other companies that want to now be involved with Bay Rats and Buoys and sponsorships. And even last week, I gave a shout out to Empire Chevrolet. And believe it or not, during the week, I get a phone call. I'm actually in the truck, and it says Empire Chevrolet. So I answer the call. And sure enough, it's Portia calling me to ask me, how do I love it? Am I loving the new truck? And just check it in. And it was that follow-up phone call that I'm telling you about now, because it's not like the waiter when they come back to your table every 5 minutes and say, do you guys need anything? You need anything? And they get annoying. She called me just to see how's it going. And that don't think she forgot that she wants to go on a fishing charter. Because in 2 of the dealerships that me and Corey were at, everybody had a boat. Everybody was into fishing. The guys at Empire had gone out on a porgy trip at a Montauk, and the bycatch for him was a mahi. So he went on a porgy trip out of Montauk, and he caught a mahi. And I said, that's just incredible. That really is. That's an awesome bycatch to get on a porgy trip. And so it's just so cool how fishing is involved in so many people's lives. Wherever I go, there's always a conversation that, pertains to boating, fishing, or, something in the marine industry. And I appreciated the phone call, and I told her that I talked about you guys in last week's episode, and I even threw up the Chevrolet, the Empire Chevy, the Huntington Chevrolet logo. I put it up on the screen and told you guys that I had a great experience. And I would recommend it to anybody to go there. And it's this kind of sponsorship that people are drawn to because it's recommendations like that, okay, that get people into stores and buying products, okay? Now, Jacob even made a comment about the Diet Coke. And I got to say, even Teddy and the boys made a comment, about the Diet Coke. And I bring it up all the time. And no, Diet Coke is not sponsoring Bay Rats and Buoys. Neither is Yeti. And yet, I'm a big fan of my Yeti cooler, which I got a new one this year. Because this little piece right here broke off. This black piece that's still on here on the zipper is still on the old cooler, okay? But the piece that holds anything onto it broke off. So we're sending that one back to Yeti. But just to show you, I'm in the studio today, and I'm prepared. And my daughter's going to say something to me because I'm holding up the mini can. We actually got the slim cans of Diet Coke, and I didn't put them in the cooler yet. They're still in the cases. And we saw them, and she's like, aren't you going to get those? Because that's just a different style can for you. And I was like, 100% I'm getting them. And I love it. So I love my Yeti. It is the greatest cooler. It really is. I use it all the time, and I'm honestly telling you, it's worth its weight in gold. They are good. They're durable. I throw this thing around. I don't care. I throw it on the boat. I throw it in the truck. I throw it, and it's super durable. It's got drinks. It's got the food. It's got everything. I have the big coolers. I have the little coolers, and I absolutely love them. So here's to all you that know. That's the captain's drink of choice right there. Now, I got to tell you, speaking of products, GoPro. We all use them, right? We all use them on the boat. Dave Brown, you won one at the Bay Rats and Buoys first annual Striped Bass Invitational. And I have the 13, which was the white one that I got, which was the latest version that was available. And I got to tell you, it shuts off all the time. And I am running the 12. I'm running a backup. Now, there's no heat. There's no sunlight. There's no reason it didn't overheat. It's shutting off. And the only way to avoid that would be to be putting in a electric battery pack, okay, and take the battery out, because the batteries are what get hot inside the GoPro. So that could be the only change I could make to that camera to keep it from shutting off. But I got to tell you, GoPro, I'm saying it right here on Bay Rats and Buoys because I use it all the time. The white GoPro 13 shuts off all the time to the point where I have to run a second camera. Now, if I knew I was coming to the studio today, I would have brought my podcast camera, the Sony, the mirrorless, okay, because that's what I use when I'm filming in the studio. The GoPros are what I use on the boat, and just because it's easier and it's easy to carry up and down and bring and not have to get crazy. But the Sony mirrorless camera that I use, I think it's the EV10. Awesome camera. That's the camera that I use to film the podcast when I'm here in the studio, and you'll see when we show you all the construction and stuff that we did moving into September. That's probably when you'll see it all, and I'll show you the camera and stuff that I use. But there you go. I'm giving you an honest opinion of the GoPro 13. Shuts off on me all the time. Diet Coke never shuts off on me. And that's it. I always give a shout out to Rob over at High Hook in Huntington. A lot of people go there to get their spot. Oh, my God. So I'm in there the other day. This is hysterical. This was real. This really happened. And I'm like next in line. So there's a lady with her 12-year-old son ahead of me. And she's asking him what bait she should use for porgies. And he tells her, now she said she wanted to use live bait. So he said you could use worms, but I would recommend using clam. And behind the counter and behind him are two garbage pails that are live wells. One has eels, one has spot. The sign says live spot, live eels. And she says, what's that? And he says, that's live bait, that's for striped bass. And she goes, are the live spot live? And that's when we looked at each other like, did she really just say that? And she did. And, yes. Yes. I mean, if I was him, I would have taken one out in a net and just tossed it to her. Been like, here, check it out. This is what a spot is. And then it's flapping around on the counter. And you tell me if it's live. But, no, seriously, you witness these things, and it does happen. Just like I was at Compass Rose in Huntington with Mike and James, and did you guys see the smoke outside? And, I mean, Suffolk County Fire, the Suffolk County Police Department was doing 80 down Mill Dam Road there, and the fire trucks are zipping by. And, it's always a shame when you see the black smoke like that because somebody's house is burning down. But the great news was the old man that lived there and his dog both got out of the house, and they were fine. So that's really all that matters. The house can always be rebuilt. But the response time for the Huntington Fire Department was absolutely insane. I mean, they were there in minutes, and that was great to see. So that's what was going on in our town recently. There's always something, there really is. So if you're going to be in the WICC tournament this weekend, where are you going? Put in the comments. Where are we going fishing for the blues? I know we got a charter Saturday morning, so Saturday morning I don't think I'll be looking for the blues. I'll most likely be bottom fishing with the family. And then Sunday. So we got to play it by ear now with the weather. We got Ian coming up the coast, and we're going to see how it affects us, how close this thing gets to us. And it's definitely going to affect, the water. South Shore is going to get, probably going to get the big waves and get pounded. But my recommendation is no matter where you are, when you got a storm like this coming up the coast, you got to go check on your boat. Make sure your bilge is working. Even if it's on a mooring, take the trip out, take the time out, get on your boat, run it, make sure your lines are correct. I mean, so many people have their boats on moorings and they don't go out and check on it, and the lines are not on there correctly. I can tell you that from experience just driving around. I see it all the time. And I'm like, oh, God, that boat's going to be on the beach. And it happens. And take it from me. I know firsthand that it happens. And I'm telling you that it happens. So go check on your boat. If it's on a mooring, check your lines. And the last time you got off your boat at the dock and went up, were you in a rush? Did you tie the boat up correctly? Is it fended off correctly? Are the lines done? Because I've seen some boats down in the marina that are not tied off correctly, and they're just moving around in a little breeze. So imagine when you're going to get higher winds, what's going to happen. So that's all I say. When you got storms coming in, go check on your boat. If you love your boat, go check on it. I know I love my boat. I love cleaning the boat. I love cleaning the truck, so now I'm 100%. I'm back. It wasn't fun being without a car for a little bit. It was not. I'll admit it. Took a lot of Ubers, but didn't keep me from going anywhere. You just had to spend more money. That's all. Big deal. And especially because it's a business expense, you get some of it back. So we weren't really crying about it. But thanks to Empire Chevy, I have a new Silverado. It's a 2022 that I got with 12,000 miles on it. And it's the Silverado Custom. It's exactly what I was looking for. Me and Corey, I looked everywhere, up and down. And finally, I wasn't settling. I wasn't in such a rush because I could still take the Ubers and everything was fine. I wasn't in a rush to get something that I didn't want or a color that I didn't want or a style. I just wasn't going to settle. So it took me a little longer, but I'm super happy. And, so 7 weeks, we're a year old here at Bay Rats and Buoys. And the fans of Bay Rats and Buoys, you guys are awesome. And the turnout we had for the tournament, I absolutely love you guys. 20 boats for the first year. Blew me away. Really did. The response. And the sponsors. I mean, J&M Seafood stepping in. And at the time that he did, too, he did it weeks before the tournament. He just, now that I know Matt, now I know why. I understand. I do. He's got an illness. It's called fishing. And we all have it. We're hooked. Just like Corey's hooked on tuna now. And I don't blame him. I don't, by any stretch of the imagination. We live on the wrong side of the island. But no, guys like Tom Trueheart have the right idea. And there's another winner. And Tom, I got your trophy in my truck because you're the only one that I haven't seen, but you did get your prize. So that's all that mattered. You got your prize, and now I got to give you the trophy. I did put the image up on the website, with your name saying that you won that, first fish caught. And I'm going to stop by his shop, but he's out there catching tuna. And, he takes his boat from the North Shore and he puts it on the South Shore for a few weeks, and more than a few weeks. And we're going to do the same thing next year. We are. We're going to get in on the tuna bite 100%. And I'm glad Corey was able to get offshore as much as he did. For me, getting offshore requires a couple of days' notice. And when you're going offshore, it's kind of like planned, like, hey, we're going tomorrow night. And with my schedule and what I do with charters and commercial towing, and now the studio kicks up end of August. With all that responsibility, with all that work comes responsibility. And I don't always have the luxury to say, okay, I'm, not going to work tomorrow. And it's not because I have to. It's because of the loyalty that I have when I said, hey, I'm going to do this job for you. I'm going to do it. And I'm obligated to be there. So I'm not one of those guys that calls in sick to go fishing because I fish so much. You guys see how much I fish. Do I need to call in sick to go fishing? Seriously? So the tuna will always be there. In fact, I'll get on them in Florida. If I don't get on them here, I'll get on them in the wintertime in Florida. So that's my goal too. We got a lot of big things happening, man. It's going to be awesome. And, don't forget, we'll probably make the announcement for the Bay Rats and Buoys Fishing Club right around the 1 year anniversary. So we have something something celebratory to tie into the anniversary and the growth of Bay Rats and Buoys. So I'm really excited. Getting a lot of response from people. Manny from the West is best. What's up, Manny? Has the new truck treating you? He too. He got a new truck, and he definitely tinted the windows a little bit darker than I did. Not going to lie. And, you can't see in Manny's truck. It's not happening. Mine, you can see in a little bit. I can still see out. Manny, you can't even see out of your windows. I don't know how you do it. No, I know you can see out of your windows, but you know what I'm saying. So, and for good reason. So, Manny's fishing the West, and we love when he heads out our way. He gives us a call. He says, yo, I'm coming out your way. And I got to say, a lot of guys, whether it was Connecticut side, whether it was out east, whether it was the guys from the west of us, they didn't think fishing was so great in their areas that they came to our area. And here I am continually saying that it's August and fishing was insane. I got to the studio today and I saw somebody that was on my boat weeks ago. And he was like, dude, that was one of the biggest highlights to my summer so far, was being on the boat with you catching the striped bass that we caught. And I caught a gator blue. He actually got tired of reeling in fish. He literally told me, the next one's yours. And I was like, no goddamn way is the next one mine. There's no way you're tired. You're reeling in the next fish. You have to do it. I was trying to wear him out. And then it got to the point where he was like, the rod went off, and he's like, yo, that's yours. And I reel it in, and it's a gator blue. So that was kind of cool. So, but he literally just said that to me an hour ago here at the studio. So it's nice when you're involved in, people's first time doing something. That was his first time catching striped bass on my boat. And there's so many people that tell us that. When we take them out, we get them on bass. They're like, yo, this is my first striped bass. And we're blown away. We really are. We didn't think it was possible, but it is. So hopefully you guys are getting on the bass still. All right. Make sure you head down to High Hook, get yourself some spot. All right. You're going to need them because live bait and live lining is the best way to go right now. Now you could use eels. They don't really do it for us. You could use bunker. You could use spot. You could use sand eels. You could do a whole bunch of things. Those bass are chewing. You could even put down clam if you wanted to and catch a bass. Or you could put down clam, catch a porgy, and then catch a bass like Frank did. And they're here. The big bass are still here. So if you want to get out and catch a big bass, hit us up. Hit me up one way or the other. One night soon, come sit with me and Corey out on the boat. We'll get you on a big bass. That was your invite. All you got to do is show up with some Diet Coke. That's it. But seriously, episode 45, almost 40 minutes in the books, and we are going to wrap it up because I didn't turn the air conditioning on in the studio. And thank God I'm wearing a very light shirt today. Man, my Tom and Jerry shirt last week, you could see it was so hot. And I mentioned that there was a little breeze, but you could see I was starting to sweat in that Tom and Jerry shirt because it's just a cotton shirt. This shirt is just, this is awesome. Which is why I picked the company that I picked for this shirt, and Teddy and George are responsible for producing this shirt, and I love them. And I've always mentioned nycembroidery.com because they do awesome job, and they were the reason we had our tournament shirts in time and looking as good as they do. Somebody told me today they want one. And I was like, sorry, you'll have to wait. This is first annual. But we had the first annual, we have the first year anniversary coming up. We'll probably have to produce some headgear. We'll have to do some hats. We're going to have to do some merchandise. And we will work on that this winter. So maybe that'll be a reason to bring it to the boat show. Maybe we'll bring the merchandise to the boat show. All right. Or we'll make it that you can just order it online as well. So, I mean, I don't have to, torch you that you have to come to the boat show. But you should come to the boat show. It should be like where we hang out. There's 5 days that me and Corey are going to be there. You should come hang out with us a little bit. And we could even, walk around with you and check out some stuff, and take a look at some of the boats with you and see what you're into as far as boating is concerned, whether it be the yellowfin. Do you want the HCB? You're looking at the Estrella. And we have a big 50-foot HCB in our harbor. And it's absolutely a beast. Got 5 engines on the back. Thing's a monster. It's one of my favorite boats. That and the yellowfin. You know the yellowfin over at the Huntington Yacht Club. It's one of my favorites. So anytime I pull in there, the fuel dock, they'll know me too because I've pulled into there to do a few things at the yacht club. And he's like, you yelled at us when we were out there on the yellowfin. You told us it's your favorite boat. And I'm like, yep, definitely is. Love the yellowfin. But that HCB is an absolute beast. So if you come to the boat show, you'll see, we did a film. We filmed. Corey went on board, and they actually gave him a whole tour and showed him everything on the HCB. They just told us don't put the price from the show on the video because that's not the price of the boat after the show. So we don't want people to see the video after the show and think that that's the price. So it's things like that you have to think of beforehand, or at least in post for editing, which this podcast has 0 editing. It's a GoPro, and the 12 is outworking the 13, and it's just how it is. So GoPro, you need to work on why the 13 is shutting off with those new batteries that you came out with, because you change everything every few models, so we have to buy more batteries and more. I get it. I understand. It's a proprietary thing. So we're going to wrap up episode number 45. Big shout out to all the fans that commented and sent us messages. We love you guys. And that is Jumpin' Jack Bass. Great name on Instagram. Robert G. and the turtle you saw in Glen Cove. Frank. All the boys over at J&M Seafood. And I can't leave Jacob out. Davy Jones Shellfish Company. Love having my conversations with Captain Jacob. He is absolutely awesome and dialed in. Can't wait to do a little spear fishing, a little free diving, some spear fishing with Jacob. But man, I tell you, the water is murky. It is, you can't see your hand in front of your face. You put it down there, you go like this, and you can't see your hand underwater. That's how dirty the water has been. So I love when you get down to the marina, you look down 10 feet and you can see to the bottom and you're like, wow, it's chin clear. But that doesn't happen until the water temperature gets cold. So it's not as much fun to be in, but it's a lot clearer. That's when it's time to go south. We're going to have to do it. We're going to have to make a little spearfishing trip for sure. So lots going on. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We really appreciate you. Next week, we'll have some big news. We're always ready to release and tell you about something. There's something happening, you know what I mean? And don't forget, I'm going to put a link to Captain Joey Leggio. I like to call him Captain Joey Legend. And we'll put a link to his GoFundMe page. Help him out and his family. They're in a time of need. And Mariner's Code. We all help out. We all come together. That's what we do. Episode number 45 coming to a close. I am Captain Gaige signing off, over, and out.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Bay Rats and Buoys. Be sure to visit sandcitycharter.com and follow Captain Gaige on all our social media channels.